welcome to the show, guys. So, I'm kind of doing this as an impromptu stream because I don't have a lot of time to get into this Alpha Lab for 2XKO, and I haven't been able to play. I did like 2 hours of footage for this one. Let me go ahead and reframe. Yesterday, I played 2XKO for about 2 hours. So this time I'm going to go edit again. And I now actually have gone through more of the tutorial. I figured that they went over most of the game's mechanics in the first part of the tutorial, like the mandatory one. But if you go through more of the tutorial, you see a lot more of the nuance in the game. And this thing is going to be crazy. I'm going to get to my thoughts on the game in more detail. But first, I wanted to quickly react to something I saw. And I wonder what you guys think about this one. So I don't know how many of you guys actually have access to the 2XKO Alpha Lab. But I was curious when I saw this thing, Button Check's most recent video, are long combos plus easy tech, killing fighting games, FGC debates. I'm going to start this one up and react to it. But what I also wanted to see was what content he's referring to, because usually Ernesto, he'll like find like tweets or content and just get a general vibe, consolidate that. Well, he'll get like tweets and other content or videos, consolidate and present the news in all one-stop shop. That's why Button Check is a really fun show to follow, because I mean, you'd be surprised actually how much news is out there for the FGC. So that's pretty cool. But I'm going to watch his content real quick. I'm going to actually turn down the volume. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I've got 2XKO in the background, and it's kind of getting in the way. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to bring up this video here so I can share this, present, share screen. We're going to go with our long combos and easy tech, killing the game. We'll share that. Open this up. Press the button.
Let's go. All right, now into the first set of the FGC officially has the oldest esports player, buttons that need to be checked.
I mean, like, that's cool, right? We kind of all know that, to be honest with you, right? We all kind of know that. Fighting games are the oldest esport, so that's cool. We got the oldest player. Let's see, long combos. There we go. Because the reason I wanted to go here was because I haven't really heard very many takes on 2XKO. And since I'm playing it today, I kind of want to see if what they're getting, if they're getting the same kind of feeling I'm getting about this game, which I think it's strange. I have very strange feelings, but I want to see if I'm like off base here. So let's see what people think.
About that. Let me know. All right, next up for the 2XKO, that Alpha 2, I believe, going on this weekend, introducing new tech, but also receiving mixed reviews, buttons that need to be checked. So we all know 2XKO, if I can talk, is coming out later this year. A lot of people hyped. They've been waiting. Some people, the game waited too long to come out. They were like, yo, you got to.
Honestly, I actually think that there's pros and cons to that, right? So the game waited too long to come out. I don't think is really a thing, because it likely would not be entirely the dev team's fault if the game's development takes a long time, based upon the cultural zeitgeist and how quickly things move. Like, the way that League of Legends was, as popular as League of Legends was, and still somewhat is, League of Legends, you would have thought that game would be at the top of everyone's minds forever, right? And I remember when I first heard of Project L, and that must have been, like 8 years ago or something. It must have been a long time. We've heard about Project L. And it was like in development, but the problem was that, at least from what I can understand, what this game was kept changing over and over and over again, because initially it wasn't going to even be a tag fighter, right? So it kept changing over and over again. But in that time, they have really worked hard to make this a very complete game. It's just that fighting game development, when you want to do it right, it's going to take a very long time to feel good, make combat feel good, and that's before people even balance. So I hear people say that like the hype for it has died down because it took so long for them to come out. They had people's attention. Like I remember it was 2 Evos ago. I went to Evo 2 years ago, and it was there. Like you could actually go and watch people play at cabinets, 2v2 cabinets, and it was still hype. People had finally got their hands on it, but then you had like a year of nothing and no real things coming out about it except for like, hey, here's like what a character's kind of like, and then only alphas, right? So they haven't had a real open beta, and I think that that's where people are just like, well, now I don't really care anymore. But on the bright side of that, the timing for where this game is being presented right now could not be better, in my opinion, because you've got Street Fighter 6. People are kind of getting bored of that, especially with Elena being presumably delayed. Well, I won't even say it's delayed because the timing window is kind of like the Capcom timing window for this kind of stuff, because their big reveal is going to be the new season, likely at Evo. Or if they do the new season reveal before Evo, they'll do like some other kind of drop at Evo. So like a teaser at Evo. So I don't think that this is going to be, and also to be on track, this is at a good time. This timing is actually quite good, while Tekken 8 is looking unfavorable to a lot of people. Like while Street Fighter is kind of boring to a lot of people. Right before City of the Wolves comes out, which is not a direct competitor in genre, right? A lot of games also having that feel that's more closely aligned with Street Fighter 6 in its development. All the power up front, plus frames, get your mix, all that up front. And then alongside that, we didn't know we would get a Marvel versus Capcom re-release package where you could play all the Marvel versus Capcom games in one spot with good netcode. Like, so that all went over. We're at a place now where like one of the better games you can get into right now is Marvel 2. And at the same time, now a new tag fighter is showing itself, and the mechanics are very closely aligned with a Marvel feel. So I think this is a great time for 2XKO, even if it's not the most hype time, I guess is what I'm saying.
Some people were even going so far to say like they forgot the game. They were focusing on everything else, and some of the hype was dying down. But then the devs over there were like, yo, we're releasing it this year. If we wait, it's going to be too long. But just know, in releasing it this year, it's still kind of almost like a rush project. Not that it's going to be, broken or malfunction or anything like that. Just they wanted to do so much. But they were like, if we. So
those are kind of my thoughts. That comment as well about this game being overcooked. Like, this game
going to be too long, but just know in releasing it this was something.
This game unfinished, unpolished, whatever, but 2XKO might be one of the first video games to spend too much time in the oven and come out overdeveloped. I don't think it's overdeveloped. I think it's more like, so if you overcook something, right? When I think of an overdeveloped game, I think of an overdesigned game. I think of a game where the mechanics are very set in stone, so much that they dictate how each character and player is going to play in very predictable ways, because that's the most fair way for the game to be played. So one game that I think is, let's say, very over-designed would be how Street Fighter V ended up, right? In Street Fighter V, you can play literally any character. Why is that? Well, because every character basically is going to go medium is their basic string. They have very reliable plus frame moves up close. Their pokes are all minus. They all have normal into V trigger as your comeback mechanic. So we all kind of know what to think about. All you have to think about with each individual character is like, based on the phase of the game, what their best option is, and try to shut that down as best as you can. The spacing mix-ups and all that stuff is just about frame data. In fact, I'd say that the most overdeveloped games or most over-designed games would be Street Fighter V, Guilty Gear Strive, MK11, everything that came out in the shimmy era, right? Everything came out in that era where we were like, oh, Street Fighter V, get plus, and then get plus, and then go into a strike throw mix. Strike throw mix games to me are the over designed, because what you've done is you say, well, what's the mix? Well, every character has the same mix. This way it's super fair, right? So it takes out some of the scramble, some of the unique positioning and unique interactions that very crazy characters would have, because you basically say, we're going to break this down into strike or throw. Whoever has advantage gets to make that choice and hold this guess. So yeah, I think that in some ways Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 lean into that as well, but they're different in the sense that they're part of this new era of dessert first, where you have your drive system, your heat system, or you have your revved up, like in Guilty Gear, in Sea of the Wolves, how you can put your top set up front. So you have all your power up front. Your meter is more about overexerting yourself to where you no longer have the resource, instead of building the resource to spend it. And that's like the dessert first model. I hope the City of the Wolves doesn't start to feel like Tekken and Street Fighter. And in fact, I'm pretty confident it won't, because I like the neutral there. But that's kind of where we are now in like dessert first. These are like over designed concept where you want to get ahead of problems. What 2XKO is doing, in my opinion, is they're putting so much like forehead, like they're going 5-head, like intergalactic brain, like crazy with this. They're giving you every single idea they've ever had in a tag fighter. They're putting it all in this game, right? So it's not overdeveloped. It's like if you're making chili and you're like, man, it'll be good in this chili, a little more chili powder. Like, how about some cumin? How about some cayenne? And then someone's like, how about some gochujang? How about some garam masala? How about some barbecue sauce? And next thing you know, like, it's still a delicious chili, but there's way too much going on, right? I think that's more like what 2XKO is right now, but we'll see.
Some people were even going so far to say like they forgot the game. They were focusing on everything else, and some of the hype was dying down. But then the devs over there were like, yo, we're releasing it this year. If we wait, it's going to be too long. But just know, in releasing it this year, it's still kind of almost like a going to be, broken or malfunction or anything like that. Just they wanted to do so much. They wanted to do so much, but they were like, if we do everything we wanted, it's going to prolong it even to 2026. So F all that. We're going to release it this year. You guys are going to finally get the game. So a lot of people are happy to see that. And there's also been some questionable things with the game, removing motion inputs, and some people thinking it's too easy or might be broken or, just not as hype as they thought it would. But on the other side, like I said, there are some people said, no, it's still going to work. Well, now they got that Alpha 2 that just dropped. So what we're going to do is get some reviews. Some of the pros actually got their hands on it. You got some saying this is it. Others like this not might be it. What the hell is this not might be it?
So my prediction here is that you're probably going to have some folks say that it's too easy or too cheap, or that there's just likely a broken interaction or way to play. Sure. But I think that we'll see, but I think that people are going to lean into. So my prediction is, if we look at this from like a mid-wit perspective, right, there are going to be people that are going to say things that they don't really mean. I think they'll say something like they might say it's too simple, but what they really might mean is something else, right? So we'll break down the arguments, what people are saying about this thing.
This ain't it. That's what I was trying to say. This ain't it. Just like this ain't it. Whatever. Right here, Reversal posting this saying 2XKO adds a new wake up option, Ground Tech, a very strong option to escape pressure on wake up. What do you think of this change? Damascus covers the changes in the video after playing 2XKO at the community tour. Take a look.
Outside of combos, a big new change is that hard knockdowns are very limited now. The game adds a role called Ground Tech on Wake Up, and it looks overwhelmingly strong so far. Basically, every time you get knocked down, you can choose where to wake up. In place, towards the left, and towards the right. This role seemingly has no recovery, so the focus here really looks like it's to get back to neutral ASAP instead of getting mixed. And as a result, remember Echo's mix?
Yeah.
Like this one? Or that one? Well, you can just roll out of it now. This will obviously need lab time.
Damascus adds to this saying, Ground Tech looks like it's going to change a whole lot of how we're going to play 2XKO. Need to lab this because a roll with no recovery sounds scary as fuck.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting. So What this reminds me of is in Blaze Blue's Blaze Blue's ground tech situation, where it's like in Blaze Blue, if you get out of a combo, if you're in a wake up situation, in at least a calamity trigger, you can recover back, forward, up, down. Especially if you're like in the air, you can like omnidirectional like DI recover away from things. And what's cool about that was your characters usually have interesting chase down interactions. Like, for example, if you knock someone down with Hazama and they back roll tech, then you can throw Ouroboros and get a back forward mix on them on wake up, because they're gonna wake up into blocking the projectile, but the projectile like chain pulls you in to get your mix. So like if there are things like that, like for example, if someone does this wake up option, if you can time their back roll with like Darius's hook, then you're still in there. Or if you can put some pressure down with an assist that has a lot of active frames, then you're still in there. It's just that I think the point was you should be able to get out of the corner and start over again, because assist fighters are very different, right? Assist fighters, a lot of the component of an assist fighter is lockdown, right? Your goal is to put your opponent, who has all the movement in the world, into a situation where they have to block, then you crack them open, right? And so being able to roll out on wake up, that's fine. Assist fighters never really had Oki in the traditional sense of like, I'm going to get up on you in high-low. It always has been put down some jank or chase down with some jank, predict the movement with some jank, and then make them unable to respond and get back to their scramble. So I think that this is one of those things where it seems powerful at first because we haven't played a serious tag fighter as a community in a very long time. Like DBFZ was definitely a great tag fighter, but the difference is that DBFZ had some strong universal mechanics that the game was built on, including like upper body invincible overheads, upper body invincible launchers, right? And parry, and that just pushed you back, but what actively pushed you back and beat everything. If we're talking about like Marvel was about their defense. The best you could do is like you time your push block on the point character to get spacing. If they react to that with another move, they can potentially frame trap with an assist, or assist lock you down, and now you have to deal with that. Like I remember watching back in the old SRK days, Combo Fiend would talk about how to practice in Marvel 3, and what he would say would be like, you know, put this computer on jump block, and then just do some crazy like storm shit to try to keep the block stun as long as possible. See how long you keep the block stun going with assists and things. And that was supposed to help you get your timing down and cadence down with your assists, your pressure, your special moves, to keep the opponent locked down as long as you could. Because the point of these games is players move a lot. You got to catch them. Once you catch them, you can do things. This seems like it just allows players to, you know, not get caught again. So I kind of like it.
Then he continues saying it's mitigated by the fact that there's a way to score hard knockdowns, but time will tell, because I think finding the right combo routes for this is going to take some time. Aliyunad said, let's add even more options, but motion inputs are too complex. Others like Kizzy K are the button.
Let's add more options, but motion inputs are too complex. Oh my gosh. So honestly, what's funny about this take is that it motion inputs are too complex is a very interesting, like, I don't want to say straw man, right? Because it's kind of a straw man in the sense that that's part of the argumentation that people say, is that we want to lower barriers for new players to come in and play this game. But for 2XKO, the barriers for new players is not to do with executing anything, really. It's not going to be to do with execution, because you can just do stuff if you apply yourself, right? The thing is that in 2XKO, the systems are so intricate in their application, and there are a lot of them. Like going through the tutorial, when you pick your characters and you pick your groove basically for how you're going to play the game, your groove changes the rules for how the characters are going to work. So in one groove you'll have push block, in another groove you won't have push block. In one groove you'll have snapback, in another groove you won't have snapback. In one groove you'll have handshake tag, in another groove you won't have handshake tag. Right? So the intensity of the game is, and the knowledge base required of the game will be overwhelming to a lot of people. Like, my thoughts on this, and I'll get into this with my own take later. My thoughts on 2XKO is that this game is going to attract like a lot of seasoned hardcore fighting game players, a lot of tag fighter players that want to play the new tag fighter, because this is a fun tag fighter. It is not going to bring in the League of Legends audience to try to learn a fighting game. There's too much in this game. There's just too much. They could have made the game more simple and every season added or even swapped around some of these mechanics. So you have like a Juggernaut season. So you have like a 2x assist season, right? But what they did was like just give them everything we could think of. And so, yeah, like I think that the thing about the motion inputs complexity thing is so interesting, because that, I think that was argued in Street Fighter, right, with modern mode, that, and I actually didn't like modern mode either, because Street Fighter being able to execute Shoryuken instead of what we call like the Mexican uppercut, like the crouching fears, under pressure as part of your mental stack is a part of your training. You cannot do that cognitively. You have to have trained your neural pathways to be able to do that Shoryuken motion when on demand without thinking about it, right? So it's even more impressive, let's say, when you can do that Shoryuken to catch, let's say, a limb or a headbutt or a Blanca ball or something, a faster move, which is why at the highest level, I think Ryu is probably like the strongest character in Street Fighter 6, because you can't do tackle moves against this guy. He's the only character that can like Shoryu into level 3 on an aerial move, right? Deep Shoryu level 3. It like if you cross cut level 3 in the corner, is like he has ways of just ending the match with Shoryu, but you have to get it down. However, if you play modern Ryu, then E Honda doesn't work anymore, right? Because E Honda cannot do his best advancing move or even butt slam, or any of his move lists is kind of cut down. Blanca can no longer Blanca ball. Blanca ball used to be oppressive when the game first came out. Once you figure the exact timing to perfect parry, or if you can Shoryu that on demand, it really takes the option away. And then Blanca has to be honest. And when Blanca's honest, it's not a strong character. But this is like, motion inputs are complex. I gotta say, like, it's a fun joke, but honestly, he's got it. He's all nailed on the head, because he did make the game more complex. Like they did make 2XKO more complex, even with it being no motion inputs. And I think that's partially compensatory, right? They didn't want fighting game players to feel like the compromise on inputs would take away from the skill expression. And I think that that's just a miscommunication on what skill expression is and what it means to players.
More options, but motion inputs are too complex. Others like Kizzy K are the buttons feel 100 times more better to press now that there's more Gatling options in 2XKO Alt 2.
Yeah. I didn't play the first Alpha Lab, right? I'm only playing this one. So this is my first time actually hands-on with the game. I didn't even play the game at Evo because the line was too long. But to me, I'm like, the buttons are better to press now. Heck yeah, the buttons feel better to press to me. This to me feels like, it feels like Blaze Blue buttons, right? Blaze Blue buttons but instead of getting a drive button, we have an assist button. And also, like, I'm not even getting to use my stick. Like I mentioned yesterday, I play with a Hitbox, a Victrix leverless, and it's not compatible with this alpha version. So I'm having to play with the Xbox controller. I have not picked up a controller for anything in forever. And I got to say, like, even using this, while it takes some getting used to, it feels good to play this game on pad. Like, it probably feels good on keyboard as well. So yeah, it feels good, definitely.
10 out of 10 experience for me right now. But then some are like, well, it actually feels the complete opposite to me. I see Aliun adding again, saying nobody ever went to the
store, looked at a fighting game and said, oh, no motion inputs. I can't buy this game. Be for real. No one ever did. Smash, man. People play Smash, you know. But that goes into a whole other topic I wanted to talk about later. So we'll see.
Store looked at a fighting game and said, "Oh no motion inputs. I can't buy this game. Let's be for real." But others, from a different perspective, are like, is building complex systems for the long term while removing what non-FGC members perceive as a barrier of entry really that hard to
Is building complex systems for the long term while removing what non-FGC members perceive as a barrier of entry really that hard to wrap your head around? So that's his argument. Now, here's something I think. This might be a bit controversial, but we'll go for it, right? Complex systems are not long-term thought processes. A complex system does not give a game its long-term value. All of the fighting games thought of as forever fighting games that have the most active players over decades that keep coming back and playing, even though it's an old game, are very simple. They don't have as many systems, right? Like, let's take just for example, Marvel 2. Marvel 2 has some cool stuff you can do. Like, it's got all these, like, I guess you say exploitative things, but ultimately, what gets you into the game from the beginning is good IPs, characters that feel good to move around on screen, fast gameplay, simple controls. Yes, Marvel has very simple controls. And the only thing you have to look at, you got to look at your life and your super meter. That's it. Life and super meter. The same thing you looked at for Marvel 1, the same thing you looked at for Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Life and super meter. You don't have to think about any other resources. Then we got to think about other kinds of cooldowns. Like, you can use an assist and then realize, oh, I just used him. I can't use him right now. But you feel that more so than you're sitting there staring at the resource, right? Yes, you can super jump and all that stuff, but that stuff is all, you kind of just do that by messing around with the movement in the game. The game gives you a lot of movement, but it doesn't have a lot of systems to interact with, things, memorize options outside of how you use a character to think about, right? Another example, we'll say Third Strike. Third Strike, it has a parry. They gave it a red parry, super meter, and Third Strike also is the game that has the super jump, right? So you can jump really far. You can parry as your your preferred defensive option if you can manage to do it. So there's a skill ceiling there, and you can dash. Now there's other stuff like obscure taunt interactions, bugs, and charge partitioning, and other things you can learn to go over the top. But you don't have to know any of that stuff to play. You have to know any of that stuff to play. All you have to pick up your character, and if you get that when that meter's full up, you can quarter circle twice for your super. That's it. There is a stun meter. You may have to let your stun meter. But ultimately, once you land enough heavy hits, you'll just stun will happen as a natural effect of the game. And it'll feel kind of like Street Fighter 2 did when you got stunned randomly. Instead, now you get stunned more predictably. Other games, freaking Virtua Fighter, no meters at all. No complex mechanics. Block, everything on block is negative except for a few moves. If you think someone's going to attack, you can sidestep, duck, or sidestep, duck, jump, whatever you think will beat the move. That's it. Buffer system. So if you think about doing something, you'll do it. It feels very intuitive. You pick up the game, you play the characters, only 3 buttons. People still play Virtua Fighter 5. Only 3 buttons. These games are all like, or Melee. Melee, it has literally 2 buttons. The only systems you have to know are how jumps work in Smash, right? That you can jump, double jump, and triple jump, and usually after a triple jump, you have to enter that weird fall state, right? You have your block/dodge button, your defense button. So once again, it's attack, special, and defense button. That's all you have to know. That's all you have to know. You can play Smash. That's all you have to know. Now, I'm not saying you can play Smash good, but the reason that these games have long-term appeal is because you can enter them very simply, and because of the movement, the depth of movement and how it feels to move your characters, the expression of skill and how well you've mastered the piloting of your character, that's what makes them long-term, because you can never be good enough in those games. No matter how much you work hard in those games, you're not going to be perfect at them, because the games have such a high skill ceiling for this simple barrier to entry. What 2XKO is doing is saying, we're going to put in so many systems that the people that study 2XKO will be very good at it. But ultimately, that is not a long-term vision, because that doesn't really iterate on itself and grow itself in the long term. Putting in systems typically means you either don't trust the players to explore, or you don't trust yourself as a developer to not break your game and create an exploitative situation. So you create all these like sandboxes, right? Where like there are gateways, barriers, and limitations to doing things that you have full control over, that you can kind of tweak as you desire. And that's what Drive is. Drive is, all right, you only can be this broken to start the match. You only be this broken, but I know exactly everything you can do. It creates more interesting game states than Street Fighter V. But like, I still think that the old Street Fighter games are more fun to play.
Wrap your head around. Then some are like, well, using your logic, if players are bad at FPS, should Dez remove the headshots?
Ooh, if players are bad at FPS, should devs remove the headshots? This is kind of what I thought I would see.
Sonic Fox answered this saying, defense might be a little too strong in 2XKO at the moment. Not fully sold on teammate push block and forward tech roll without there being a little more counterplay.
This is actually the best take. I like this take, because I only did tutorial today, so I haven't actually been able to deploy all the defensive options of the game, right? So if you think about it, right, if you have the teammate push block might be really strong if it doesn't take away from your teammate doing things, or if you can tag during it, that'd be annoying. And typically, like if you were to do a guard cancel, let's say in DBFZ, a teammate guard cancel tags the other teammate in, so you can counter that by cutting your string short and then attacking the teammate as they super dash in. So there's a way you can keep your aggression if you make a read on how your opponent wants to defend. Or the forward tech roll, for example, if there's no delay to that, then you can't simply force them back into your mercy. That's the point. The question is, can I throw down something meaty? Like if someone's going to tech roll, can I hold my heavy and then hit them once they recover? If that's the case, then I just need to practice tech roll options, right? And that seems to be fun to me if the goal is just to trap them again. We'll see. If defense is too strong, this would be the person that'll tell you. Sonic Fox will be the person that'll tell you if the defense is too strong, because I mean, it plays really, really lame, right? Usually Sonic plays really, really lame from the start of any game. He'll pick the absolute, like, pick the absolute most turtle, like the most direct route to victory. This person will tell you exactly how to win. Will show you exactly how to win a fighting game on release. And I hope that I hope that it's fully engaged in the game. I actually haven't seen him do this. Oh my god, I'm bad. I am bad, yo. Oh my gosh, I'm bad at this, yo. I'm a Fury combo.
And more continuing on saying, somewhat conflicted on initial impressions with 2XKO Alpha 2. I think there is a right direction and it's better game in some regards, but I had less fun playing it and still enjoyed myself, but not as much. Game feels strange and character game plans are less fluid. Sonic Fox responds saying, honestly, my thoughts too. I think the first build was far more fun to me than this one currently.
You know, I kind of wish I had the experience of playing the first build so I could actually compare the two. But I didn't get into the alpha that time. Game feels strange. Character game plans are less fluid. I'd have to know what they first were to make the comparison. SQ's probably correct though, but I also rather like when characters don't have a fluid game plan where they just have things they do. Like for example, Braum. You would think that Braum would be a grappler, that he'd be a lumbering character that has a hard time clearing the screen, but has a big reward for being up close. What Braum actually is he's more like Juggernaut, where he has very strong tackle and is going to have to use frame traps mostly to actually get himself going. But once he does get hits on you, he has some very powerful armor, right? So he likes to space trap, frame trap, beat things with armor, kind of like Hulk, kind of Hulk Juggernaut, right? So yeah, I think that it's actually quite interesting how that character feels, even though he has a projectile where he just throws a Poro at you, right? Like it's and a Sub-Zero freeze projectile. So I think that it's interesting to me when characters are less designed, like less like I'm going to tell you how to play me.
Too. I think the first build was far more fun to me than this one currently. Justin Wong has the complete different perspective, saying, interesting. I actually had way more fun in this build. I had less fun on the last build because I felt like it was just rinse repeating and the same combos, and so was everybody else, in my opinion. Now I feel like my gameplay doesn't look like the same as somebody else playing the same team, but I also enjoyed.
Yes. This is exactly the take that I wanted to see, because I think that Justin, being that he is already really proven himself and has established himself as far more than a competitive player. He's like greatest of all time, bar none, as far as not just accomplishments, but also just what he has done for fighting games and building scenes and building teams and still making great content. So really respect Justin Wong. One thing that I love that he says here is this last line here. I feel like my gameplay doesn't look like the same as someone else who is playing the same team, right? This is what people talk about when they say skill expression. And this is also usually apparent in older games with movement, right? In Virtua Fighter, in Melee, in Tekken, in Marvel, in all these forever kind of games, King of Fighters, there's a way that high-level players move that low-level players don't move like. And usually you can tell when someone's good if they just know how to properly pilot the character. It's about building those neural pathways and mind-body connections where the way you move on screen is an expression of your skill, about how much time you've logged in the game. It doesn't have to be the combos. Combos are usually not thought of as skill expression until you get to the most difficult combos. BMBs and mixes and setups, those things are not necessarily expressions of skill. They could be expressions of wit, right? They could be expressions of in the moment improvisation. But when it comes to skill, you can say you can express skill in Marvel if you know infinites and how to get into them consistently from different setups and to keep them going. You've practiced that so many times that you want to express your skill at doing a difficult combo, right? When you do find just frame situations and in just frame combos, or Akira's knee, or freaking electrics from Tekken, you will like that those exist because there is a ceiling with, if I can get this down, it will unlock a new level, and my gameplay will look like better than someone else's. Just on the surface, I'm nice like that. But movement's the most important thing. He says that now his game doesn't look the same as somebody else because of how you freaking blaze through this game with all the movement tech and stuff and the ability to re-enter that neutral much easier. He doesn't have to hold things, right? I assume that you would have had to hold mixes more often the last game, making it more aggressive, which if you play a lot of modern fighting games now, you probably actually are used to that now and like that. I think older heads really love playing the neutral, the scramble more often, because that's where both players get to move. And that's where the games are interesting, when both players are threatening and no one is having will imposed upon them yet. That's why he says this next point. He also enjoyed that Jinx gives him a different archetype, and I'm not forced to engage with you. The turtle lame mindset is, I want to play a character where I don't have to engage. You have to engage with me. Just like the grappler mindset is, I'm a moving wall. I want to play this way. I don't want to play your strike throw mix game. I am the strike throw mix, but I'm a moving wall. You have to take the fight to me or run from me, but you got to figure out how you're going to deal with me, because if you make a mistake in front of me, I'm going to deal max damage and then I'm going to do it again. That's why I love grapplers. I love zoners, because their gameplay inherently is going to be different than playing a match of two Shotos, right? So this is, or even I'd say the worst matchup is two mixed characters. Like if you have two, like a Miller Age, a mirror, that's going to be annoying. It's going to be who gets that knockdown and gets to set up their niceness first, right? So he's saying what I think a lot of older players really believe when it comes to expressions of skill and when it comes to movement is that your gameplay, you want your gameplay to feel and look different than someone else doing the same thing, which means that you're playing it, not your character's playing it. And Jinx gives him an archetype that allows him to zone. So that means there's a style of play where you can approach the game in a different way that leans into how you like to engage with opponents. Maybe you want to be a mean zoner. You should be allowed to be a mean zoner.
Jinx gives a different archetype, and I'm not forced to engage with you. I do think this build is less anime and probably caters to more the non-anime FGC players. Hopefully, they can reach in the middle. And I see Jonah adding as well, saying combo length. One of the reasons we're excited for a ton of folks to get early hands-on in Alpha Lab, along with ensuring a training mode was available, is to see what players were cracking things wide open. We've seen a ton of really creative things, but I want to underscore that super long periods of low to zero agency.
They get it. I love this. Yuna, you get this, man. Or whoever, maybe he's quoting somebody else. I just want to make sure. So the problem of this long periods of low to zero agency, I can't even do anything. Man, now I'm just in the corner. Now I'm just in the mix. I can't do anything. Oh, this combo lasts forever. Yeah, I'll just put the controller down and watch you play. Like, this is the part of fighting games everyone hates, right? This is also, by the way, the part of, I think, people don't like about Tekken 8. Not that they don't have agency, but like when someone does tracking mid heat engager and you have to just hold that mix, that means your agency is gone. The fact that it was a tracking mid, and they don't have the same movement options, right? Like you don't get to move around and be in control of your destiny. They force you to hold 50-50s. And that also is low agency. So what are we seeing from this? This is showing us a good sign in fighting game development that they're saying, hey, we understand players don't want to just hold something, and that players also don't want to be stuck in basically CC, crowd control. They don't want to be comboed for a long period of time where they're not getting to engage. They want you to go back to neutral, think about what the opponent wants to do and what you want to do and how to interact. Do you want to be the person that punishes or the person that goes in? Well, how are you going to do this? Do you know what your opponent wants to do in the situation? Are you thinking about them, right? And if you get it wrong, right? Wrong. Okay, you got it wrong. Forward roll. Now you're out. Now you're in the neutral. That's a good way to design things.
Are undesirable. I even see FeedX on that Tekken point of view adding to this pretty much the same train of thought, right? Saying low to zero agency are undesirable. Right here saying Tekken, please take note of this. Super long periods of low to zero agency are undesirable. This applies to more than combos. And then they both quote retweeted this video. Check it out.
I mean, Ryan, Outer Wilds was almost a novel. Like it wasn't. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff.
The walking simulator. The walking simulator original. Very different.
I actually really appreciated the flying part.
Yeah, it's very different. Very different.
I especially because Outer Wilds is a game you're supposed to play where you're in call and then 5 people who have played the game are watching you play it for the first time. And they're like, oh shit, you know. Yeah, 100%. And them watching you not know how to fly is like part of it, I think.
Well, I never did that.
Like watching you crash.
I was never in the call.
That's not true. That is not true.
All right, so there it is. We have a lot to unpack because we got different perspectives. But the one you might be wondering about is that last statement, the low to zero agency. What does it signify? What does it mean? Let Nesto. You know, I'm summa cum howdy loudy. You know, I've got my master's in GED. And let me break it down to you. Low to zero agency. So first of all, that word agency, it's like an agency. Or it's Greek Hebrew meaning agente, which is agent. And then you got
right? So he has the joke.
Secret agent. So if you get you a secret agent of low to zero, then basically you're getting a little person, super secret agent. A little secret agent. That's what they're referring to. Or we can just Google the shit like I originally did. Right here saying low to zero agency signifies a lack of personal control and influence over one's own life and action. It means feeling powerless, like one is not the primary driver of their own choices and outcomes and you get it because you see these combos that are like, what did we see this last one? Was it like a 50 hit or some shit like that? People are like, yo, low to zero agency, just getting tossed up, just getting smashed for long periods of time. And Feedy even pointed out saying it's more than just combos though. It can be reference to other parts of the game where we feel like we're basically powerless. It's not fun. It's not desirable. And also he goes as far as to say, Tekken, please take note, which is crazy to see because I made the point a few videos ago is I remember a time, I want to say it was like 2020, something like that, where people were stressing when Street Fighter V was at, large and in demand. And they were like, yo, there's no creativity. There's no originality. We want long combos back. Like y'all killed the combos. Just as people love the slam dunk, people love combos. So it did seem like the FGC was on the forefront.
You know what's so funny is that this is exactly what I was talking about. Of there's this kind of the midwit meme take, right? Of like on both sides of the midwit, there's like the dimwit, and then there's like I guess he's like the wizard or whatever. Then there's the midwit in the middle that's like overcomplicates everything. But the guys on the other side are both getting to the same conclusion. They just get to a different way. If you say like, it feels like I have no age to zero, I feel like I can't do nothing, right? They might both know that, and the midwit might overthink it and not be as good at the game as either of them. But the expression, I think, needs to be broken down into what gamers really want. Because a lot of times competitive gamers will, because they're good at the game, they'll tell you what they feel as a very natural, I'd say, almost honest, upfront, point blank way of speaking, but that also isn't helpful to developers because they don't know exactly what the person means. If they say like, for example, long periods of agency and it's not just combos, right? That is someone, and when you're trying to break down, like, what do you mean? He goes straight into combos again. Like people say they want short combos and long combos. The combos are skill expression. Combos in Street Fighter are skill expression when combos are hard to do, period. Not when they are long, when they're hard to do. Like in Street Fighter 4, we thought anyone that had their one frame links was nice. And you had to choose between the easy combo or the one frame link that could take you further, get an actual corner carry, or that could potentially go into hard knockdown. And then because you could easily combo in a hard knockdown, you could do things like high-low mix or cross-up mix instead of dealing with just doing strike-throw mix, right? So that, while Street Fighter 4 became something killing, like Street Fighter 4 became more like a high mix where you knock someone down, you get this vortex, like Arcade Edition, when it was the vortex era where it's like, all right, you get your knockdown, now your opponent has to guess between what this jump is, cross up, high, overhead, or low, and you can't really correct that in because it also could be a safe jump, right? So they had to, and that people did that because it was possible to hard knockdown in that game, right? Everything else your opponent would usually get the tech out of, but because of the one, and really like sometimes it was 2 frames, but you were able to do things that you usually do. It allowed for to actually look stronger and show that they're doing things that aren't normal. Because if you weren't doing, those combos, the 1 and 2 frame link combos, then all you were doing was like medium punch flash kick, right? Level, but that's what you got. The other dude had it nice. They can jab, medium punch, flash kick to hit confirm. So it's like, he had. It was just stuff like that I think that people really think about with combos in Street Fighter. Because if you try to combo in Super Turbo, you try to do like a Fei Long combo, very difficult to get like jab into freaking difficult to do that stuff. But or even like in a Third Strike, you have to like you get the Kara the second Shoryuken, which makes it something that proves you kind of got it In Street Fighter V, they made the game very, very fair and very designed. Would say, okay, well, an EX can be a combo starter that goes into an, and you didn't really have to down anyway, but players did like that at least the game felt like they could do more. Honestly, it's a misplaced thought process, right? Because ultimately, like in May, is considered to be incredibly engaging to play at a high level for a very long time, even though it isn't a combo heavy game, because Smash itself is not a combo heavy game. What's interesting is the amount of interactions that players have between each other, because it's a maximum agency game. In Smash, there is no game, no fighting game where you have more agency than Smash. You can even kill yourself. It has the most agency of any fighting game. That's why people are addicted to it, because both players are pressing buttons the most times. In fact, as far as actions per minute, Smash players have the highest actions per minute of any fighting game players ever, which is why Smash community, I think, is high at a competitive level, not just at the entry level of the game selling a lot because it's a well-known Nintendo game that uses Nintendo IP to sell to move a lot of copies, or because you've all played it casually. You know, we've all played it casually because it's a simple Nintendo game, but at the high level, people still play it because it is the game for your destiny more than any other game. Because characters the most. There are very few. You're never really stuck in a combo. You never really have to. The worst, you're like in midair. At least with the mix, right? So I just feel like it's to avoid the yeah, like it's high agency, and that's why it's good. Combos really aren't the thing.
Begging devs, please bring back the longer and also the more difficult combos, which made it more fun, which made it more enjoyable, more respectable, and that fucking where people are getting out of their seats kind of thing. Now, if everybody can do it, and it seems like if you're just mashing buttons, that's what I'm kind of feeling from the FGC. Please let me know if you guys agree or disagree with that statement. I don't know if the FGC is now just doing a complete 180 and saying, no, we don't like long combos at all. Or if they're like, no, we do. They just have to be earned. So they have to find that blend. And how successful is it going to be? We'll wait to see, but for now, mixed reviews. But I guess that could be said with anything, whether it's in its beta or alpha state. How y'all feeling? Let me know. That it is, ladies and gents. Definitely let me know how you were feeling. Thank you guys for the amazing love.
I love that. I love Ernesto's content, man. Not just because he has the Mexican version. He's also pretty cool. This from the stage real quick. I'm actually gonna leave a comment on his channel because I have a. Let me go here. So what am I gonna tell him? I'm gonna tell him regarding agency. It's not necessarily about whether combos. Well, I guess I'd say I'll just make a statement. How about that? I'll be like, this is where I get caught in my own head, because what I really want to say is what I kind of just said, which is that players want to move their character as much when in a combo for seconds, holding 50-50s, not my character. Expression is how you can pilot your character. Combos the practice to performance loop that is unique. I want to practice hard, whether or this is really boring. Whether that is movement or combos, whatever. I said whether that's wave dashes, combos, exploits, or wave dashes. I said wave dashes. Just combos, exploits, whatever. And perform them, perform those techniques under stress. That is the reason a lot of people, usually older players, play fighting games. All right. So that's what I said. Players want to be able to move their character as much as possible. When I'm in a combo for 7 seconds or holding 50-50s, I'm not moving my character. Skill expression is showing how well you can pilot your character. It's not about combos. It's about the practice to performance loop that is unique to fighting games. I want to practice something hard, whether it's wave dashes, combos, exploits, or whatever, and perform those techniques under stress. That's the reason a lot of people, usually older players, play fighting games. When I have to hold something, I can't do that. I'll say when I'm forced into guesses, I can't do that. Actually, I'll take that part out because it's self-explanatory, right? And I mean, like, I'll go ahead and give my own take on this. I was going to do a video about the Forever fighting game, and I haven't written anything down, and I don't want to go off the dome because I feel like that would do I feel like that's more of like an essay thing, right? Where I'd want to write down what makes a fighting game a forever fighting game, like how this phenomenon exists where people will play the same thing for years. They just play the same fighting game 4 years and be like, this is the one I want to play. Like, why does that happen? And I think it happens because of the things that are in common between them, which usually is that the controls were simple, so the entry point was easy. But beneath that entry, there was depth in the piloting of the character. Just piloting the character was hard to do at the highest level, easy at the lowest level, hard at the highest level. Moving your character around better than somebody else was hard to do. So they find ways of like, hey, I can L cancel, I can wave dash, I can do this technique. I used to even practice, I think it was in Brawl, how you could, like, if you teleported with Zelda and teleported till you landed on a platform, you could like teleport again instantaneously. I used to practice those because I was like, that's the coolest thing this character does. I want to get that down. So I'm that teleporting Zelda that's just all over the place, right? I wasn't even good at the game, but I wanted to practice that thing. Practice has to be satisfying, has to feel rewarding, and it has to feel like it gave you an edge, right? People may say they don't want to have to wave dash to play a game, but I think that's part of the game, is uncovering that movement and mastering it. And now then you take your game to where, hey, I may not be nice like Wong, but I can at least move like Wong, right? And that's cool. You can move like him. Eventually you can get there. But if the game is, all right, I can drive rush in just like Wong, now he has to hold my mix, then you got to think to yourself, where does the skill come in, right? And that's the thing, because the skill is different. People like to think of skill as being the expression of skill is about winning the game, and I don't think that's what it is. I think the expression of skill is always based in dexterity, because if it were about having the right answers, we play chess, right? Let's go ahead and stop this screen. Thanks a lot, Ernesto. We're going to go ahead and go into 2XKO. Go ahead and share my screen. Where are you at? It's called Lion. Lion. There we go. All right. So now we're in 2XKO. So I know that no one's watching, and that's cool. You don't got to. Man. But I want to talk about this game because I feel like this game. So let me take off my Eris filter. I'll put on a light, and I'll turn that light down a little bit. My geez, oh my gosh, I am bright, yo. Can I turn you down? Oh no, I can turn you yellow. All right, well, we'll deal with that. All right, so 2XKO, y'all. This game is out. Well, not out. So yesterday I started playing 2XKO for the Alpha Lab, and I'm really enjoying it. But I wanted to talk about some of my feelings about this game that I think let me put this closer. I want to talk about some of my feelings about 2XKO that may or may not resonate with the audience here. I understand this game is rather controversial. There are a lot of takes about it, and usually these takes are coming from people that play fighting games, for a living, right? They have much longer time. Let me start over. I had to get rid of that streamer thing. So Alpha Lab 2 is going on for 2XKO. I'm playing right now, and I'm going to give you the opinion of someone that doesn't play fighting games at the absolute highest level, and also doesn't play them professionally. You may decide that means you don't want to hear my opinion, and that's totally fine. But I have been playing fighting games very consistently for about the last, I want to say, 15 years. And I remember each era of fighting gaming up from 2009 to this point. And I got to say that this game really takes me back. I really enjoy 2XKO, but I wonder if the final product will be a product that fans of Riot games would like more so than fighting game fans would like, because I feel like this is a total love letter to anyone that's played Marvel or maybe even BlazBlue Cross or any other tag fighting game in MVCI, right? Like, it feels like a mash of all the most fun tag mechanics that have ever been in a tag fighter, making it a really big tag sandbox. However, I don't think that this is going to cross over very well with I don't think this is going to cross over very well with Riot players, with non-fighting game players. The reason being is because I'm going to show you guys this, and you might think this is a bit silly to say that this is the reason, because this is also how the game is actually balanced and made to be fair. But when we look at fuses, this is 5 different, I guess you'd say, grooves or isms as to how to use your characters, right? Basically, when you pick your 2 characters, you choose one of these fuses, and each one of these changes the rules about what's accessible to the team. Usually the rules about how your partner interacts with the point character. For example, in Juggernaut and Sidekick, the partner is not tagged into. It mostly acts as a support for the point character. Juggernaut even unlocks some older Marvel techniques like snapbacks and push block. So you end up in this situation where the game's mechanics change based on each of these things, effectively giving players new rule sets and a larger stack of things to think about, not with what their opponent is doing, but with how they should be able to move and control their character. You might think that giving a players a burst button, a push block button, a snapback button, a tag button that goes into a switch off the tag button, a DHC mode, but that isn't consistently there in other modes, and this weird freestyle thing, which is basically MVC1, where you can control both characters at the same time. However, not simultaneously. However, that you can like do the beatdowns of both characters and as you tag them freely back and forth. This is a really cool system that fighting game players are probably going to love to explore. But I got to say, it's probably one that people that don't play fighting games will likely feel overwhelmed with. And I feel like it's a compensatory move because this game was meant to be simple. It has light, medium, heavy buttons, and then 2 special move buttons. So everything is done with 1 button press. However, I think as a way of making up for the simplicity of lacking motion inputs, they decided that they should add complexity by overloading on several different systems that are totally transformative to the characters using them when they're used. So what ends up happening is you as a player have to know a lot about this game to engage with it and be able to intuitively play it, meaning that when you first pick it up, you're going to be kind of lost. Now, to its credit, they do have several tutorials, trial matches, and things for new players to learn, but most new players, and I think this is part of the fighting game mythos we need to kind of break down, tutorials can be great. And I think that we've seen great examples of tutorials that help players that are interested in investing invest further. But League of Legends works even for players that aren't invested in video games at all. Your girlfriend will play League of Legends with you. And I don't mean that to sound sexist. I mean that to say that if your girlfriend is uninterested in video games at all, she can still figure out League of Legends, right? You point and click and you press the Q button and you hover the aim and you help out, right? Like over time, you will build some neural pathways, but you don't have to build as strong of neural pathways as you would for a fighting game. Valorant is an FPS. Everyone kind of understands the language of FPSs. Most people have played an FPS. So even if you have to learn Valorant specific mechanics, it's a lot less stress picking up and playing Valorant as a new player or as someone that doesn't play, a lot of video games versus, picking up and playing Marvel. And I feel like when it comes to this IP, they could have had the game be just as deep with half the mechanics, because I've only talked about fuses. Once again, there are even more mechanics that are not being talked about here. For example, in offense, right? We have special supers, cross subs, and hit confirming. That makes sense, right? We all expected that to be in the game. So the offense is very simple. The defense is far more complex than the offense. You have recovery options where you can recover up, down, left, right, even delay recover, fall recover, which you kind of DI if you fall out of a combo, which also puts you back into a neutral state so you can attack after DIs, which create robust situations. There's invincible wake ups back and forward. There's push blocking, where you can call an assist while blocking to guard push the person off you. But then there's parrying, where you cost a meter to parry an attack, creating that cool perfect parry moment. I don't think parry should be in the game. I think it will create very hype moments, but ultimately wagering a meter for a perfect parry, I'd rather just use my super, but the supers aren't invincible startups. So, maybe use the armored Shoryu